welcome to this deep dive. You know, we're going to be talking about one of history's most captivating prison breaks.
Definitely.
The escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah.
So you know Alcatraz, right?
Of course.
The Rock, that maximum security prison.
Yeah.
You know, perched on a desolate island in the middle of San Francisco Bay.
Right.
It was home to some of America's most notorious criminals, like Al Capone.
Right.
The kind of place that was designed to crush spirits, you know, not foster escape plans.
Well, what's fascinating about Alcatraz is that it was considered virtually inescapable.
Right.
And yet, from 1934 to 1963, 36 men dared to try in 14 separate attempts.
Yeah, most of those attempts ended in failure,
Yeah.
some tragically so. But there's this one escape that continues to grip our imaginations to this day.
Yes.
The vanishing act of Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin on June 12, 1962.
Right.
What sets this case apart isn't just the audacity of it, but the meticulous planning and sheer ingenuity they used crafting their escape with items you wouldn't believe. Yeah.
And of course, the fact that their fate remains unknown.
Of course.
Well, that's what keeps us coming back to this story, isn't it?
Exactly. This wasn't just about brute force. It was
Correct.
about outsmarting a system that believed itself impenetrable.
So, okay, before we get into let's delve into the who.
Okay.
Who were these guys who dared to take on Alcatraz?
Well, Frank Morris was considered brilliant cunning, but with a rap sheet, as long as your arm plan on, you know, bank robbery, burglary,
Oh, wow.
multiple escape attempts from previous prisons, the works.
Wow.
John and Clarence Anglin brothers and partners in crime also had a history of trying to slip out of confinement. And here's the interesting part. They all knew each other from prior stints in different prisons, which makes you think this collaborative escape had been brewing for a while.
So imagine you're a guard on Alcatraz.
Okay.
It's June 12, 1962, a seemingly normal morning. You go for your routine bed checks.
Yeah.
And boom, 3 inmates have vanished. Poof. But here's the real kicker they left behind. These incredibly lifelike dummy heads nestled in their beds.
Oh, wow.
These weren't just crude fakes either.
Oh, really?
We're talking heads, sculpted from plaster, meticulously painted flesh tones, and topped with real human hair, painstakingly collected from the prison barbershop. The guards were completely fooled. It speaks to a level of planning and psychological insight that's chilling, don't you think?
It's more than just cleverness, isn't it?
It is.
It's like they understood the rhythm of the prison,
Yeah.
the guards' routines, and exploited it perfectly.
Right.
It makes you wonder, did the guards ever suspect anything, or were they willfully blind to the possibility of something so audacious?
So the prison immediately went into lockdown.
Yeah.
And the full force of the FBI descended upon Alcatraz, determined to unravel this impossible escape.
So the FBI throws everything they've got at this investigation.
Right.
They're combing through the escapees' past, grilling their families, even asking every boat owner in San Francisco Bay to be on the lookout. What did they find? What clues did these guys leave behind?
They found some curious things. A packet of rubber-sealed letters related to the escapees. Pieces of wood and rubber inner tube floating in the bay.
Okay.
And even a homemade life vest washed up on a nearby beach.
Wow.
Each piece, another fragment of this impossible puzzle.
And that's where Alan West enters the picture, right?
Exactly.
The fourth man involved in the plot, the one who didn't make it out.
Right. West becomes a crucial source for the FBI. He helps them piece together the incredible escape plan.
Yeah.
A plan hatched months earlier in December of '61.
Wow.
Sparked by the discovery of some discarded saw blades. Can you imagine that?
Old rusty saw blades.
Yeah.
The genesis of one of the most famous prison breaks ever.
It's almost poetic, isn't it?
It is.
They didn't have access to fancy tools or high-tech gadgets. They had to rely on their wits and whatever scraps they could scrounge.
Right.
Like that drill they fashioned out of a broken vacuum cleaner motor.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Can you imagine the patience, the dedication it must have taken to loosen the air vents at the back of their cells night after night with something like that?
Their secret workshop was hidden in plain sight. Behind their cells, there was this unguarded utility corridor.
Right.
A space they transformed into their sanctuary for crafting freedom.
Wow.
It's where they built their escape tools, where they meticulously converted raincoats into life preservers and painstakingly stitched together a 6-by-14-foot raft.
I remember reading that they actually vulcanized the raft.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't familiar, vulcanizing basically means treating rubber with sulfur to make it more durable.
Right.
These guys trapped in Alcatraz figured out a way to make their makeshift raft seaworthy using stolen and donated materials and the heat from the prison's steam pipes. That blows my mind.
And then there's that 30-foot ceiling you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
They used pipes to climb it, pried open a ventilator at the top, and even crafted a fake bolt made of soap to hold it temporarily in place. It's almost unbelievable how resourceful they were.
Okay, so picture it. It's the night of June 11th.
Okay.
The plan is in motion, but Alan West gets left behind.
He does.
What happened? Why couldn't he join the others?
His ventilator grill wasn't completely removed in time. He was trapped.
Oh,
But Morris, John, and Clarence, they slipped into the corridor, grabbed their gear, and climbed up and out through the ventilator. From there, they made their way onto the roof, down the bakery, smokestack, scaled the fence, and finally reached the shore. Imagine that moment, standing on the edge of Alcatraz with a makeshift raft and a sliver of hope against the vastness of San Francisco Bay.
And that's where we'll leave off for today. They pushed their raft into the dark, frigid waters, leaving behind a prison that believed itself unconquerable. But did they conquer the bay? Did they survive? We'll delve into that in part 2.
I can't wait.
Me neither.
Yeah.
See you next time. So we left off with Morris and the Anglin brothers pushing their makeshift raft into the dark, unforgiving waters of San Francisco Bay.
It's a scene ripe with tension, right?
Yeah, the culmination of months of planning, risking it all on a hope and a prayer.
Yeah.
But the leap was just the first act. What happened next?
Right.
Did they succumb to the elements, or did they pull off the impossible?
Well, the FBI, after an exhaustive 17-year investigation, concluded that the escapees most likely didn't survive. They meticulously examined every piece of evidence, chased down countless leads, interviewed anyone who might have had even a shred of information. But in the end, they found no concrete proof that the men made it to shore alive. It's the logical conclusion, isn't it?
It does seem like the odds were stacked against them.
Yeah.
But something about this case makes it hard to accept a simple, straightforward answer. Their ingenuity back on Alcatraz, the meticulous planning, it makes you wonder. Wouldn't it be more surprising if they hadn't planned for life after Alcatraz?
That's the enduring mystery of this case, isn't it? Despite the FBI's thoroughness, despite their conclusion, there's still that nagging question. That sliver of doubt that lingers. It's like a loose thread that refuses to be tucked away. And that's what kept this case alive even after the FBI closed their file.
Wow.
In 1979, it was handed over to the U.S. Marshals Service, and they, unlike the FBI, haven't ruled out the possibility that the trio might still be alive.
Wait, so the case is still open?
It is.
After all these years.
The Marshal Service sees it as their duty to pursue fugitives, regardless of the time that's passed.
Wow.
As long as there's even a remote chance these men are out there, they'll keep digging.
Wow. That changes things, doesn't it? It's like the story took on a whole new chapter.
It did, and that's what we're exploring here. Not just the escape itself, but the enduring mystery. The different perspectives, the weight of evidence, and the possibility, however slim, that these three men might have rewritten the ending of their story.
Okay, so the FBI leans towards a tragic end. The Marshals haven't given up hope. And then you've got all these theories and speculations swirling around this case for decades. Let's break it down. What are some of the possibilities that have fueled this ongoing investigation?
Well, one theory that gained traction in recent years came from a surprising source. A Dutch study.
Interesting.
Conducted in 2018, researchers used tidal flow data and computer modeling to simulate the escape route. The currents, the tides, everything. It was like creating a virtual replay of that night.
So they were testing the feasibility of the escape?
Exactly.
Seeing if the raft could have actually made it, given the conditions in the bay?
Exactly. And the results were fascinating. The simulation showed that if the escapees launched their raft between 11 p.m. and midnight, paddling towards Horseshoe Bay, north of the Golden Gate Bridge, there's a chance they could have reached land.
So maybe the escape route wasn't the guaranteed death trap many assumed it to be.
The study also found that any debris from the raft would have likely drifted towards Angel Island, which aligns with where some of the items connected to the escape were actually found. It added a layer of scientific plausibility to what was previously thought of as a fool's errand.
Okay, that's one piece of the puzzle. The simulation suggests survival was possible, at least in terms of navigating the water. But what about life after Alcatraz? Evidence is there that they evaded capture and disappeared.
There have been countless alleged sightings over the years, each one a flicker of possibility in the darkness.
Like what? Give me some examples.
There was a woman who claimed to be a childhood friend of the Anglin brothers.
Uh-huh.
She said she ran into them in 1975 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, no less.
Oh, wow.
She even had a photograph to support her claim.
A photo that's pretty big. Did
Yeah.
the FBI look into it?
They did. The FBI analyzed the photograph, but they couldn't definitively say one way or the other.
Right.
The photo quality wasn't great, and facial recognition technology wasn't what it is today. So it remains another intriguing piece of the puzzle, adding fuel to the fire, but not providing a conclusive answer.
So another dead end, but one that keeps the hope alive for some. What other sightings have popped up over the years?
Reports have come from all corners of the globe.
Oh, yeah.
South America, Europe, you name it. People claiming to have seen the escapees working on farms, blending into crowds, living seemingly ordinary lives under assumed identities. There's even a story about a man who claimed to have met Frank Morris in San Diego, working as a street vendor of all things.
Wow.
It's like they became ghosts, haunting the fringes of society, always just out of reach.
It's easy to see how these stories capture the imagination, right?
Yeah.
The idea that they outsmarted the most secure prison in America and vanished into thin air.
Right.
It's like something out of a Hollywood movie. But realistically, these sightings are nearly impossible to verify after all this time.
Exactly. Eyewitness accounts are notoriously unreliable, especially after decades.
Right.
Memories fade, details get distorted, and sometimes, let's face it, people just want to believe they've encountered someone infamous.
Right.
Someone who pulled off the impossible.
So the sightings, while intriguing, aren't exactly hard evidence. What about the family? Was there any contact after the escape? Any reason to believe they might have reached out to loved ones?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
In 2010, the Anglin family presented the History Channel with a Christmas card.
Really?
They claimed was sent by the brothers shortly after their escape in 1962.
A Christmas card. Wow. That's bold. Did they have it analyzed? Could it be authenticated?
A handwriting expert believed the writing on the card was likely John Anglin's, but the FBI wasn't convinced. They couldn't definitively link it to the escapees.
Of course, they would be cautious, right? But still, a Christmas card from Alcatraz, that's not something you just toss aside.
And the family's claims don't end there. They say that the brother's mother received flowers every Mother's Day after the escape.
Wow.
A gesture that would certainly fit their profile, but again, no concrete proof. Just the unshakable belief of those who knew them best.
It really highlights the human side of this story, doesn't it? We've got the investigators focused on the facts and evidence, and then the family clinging to hope, fueled by the belief that their loved ones are still out there somewhere.
It's a powerful reminder that even in a case as notorious as this one, there are deeply personal stories at play, stories of love loss and the enduring power of hope.
So we've gone through the evidence or lack thereof, the theories, the conflicting perspectives, and the emotional weight of it all. What can we definitively say about the fate of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers?
Honestly, not much. The mystery endures.
It's amazing to think after all this time, all the investigations and analysis, that we're still left with more questions than answers.
Right.
The Alcatraz escape remains this puzzle with missing pieces, a story that just refuses to be neatly wrapped up.
And that's part of what makes it so compelling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's a story that challenges us to grapple with the limits of what we know.
Yeah.
To consider the possibility that sometimes the most intriguing stories are the ones that leave us wondering.
Okay, so we've explored the official investigations.
Right.
Both the FBI's and the U.S. Marshal Service's ongoing efforts. We've touched on the alleged sightings.
Right.
And the family's unwavering belief that the brothers, at least, are still out there.
Yeah.
But let's get back to that night in June 1962.
Okay.
If they did survive the bay, how did they do it? What would it have taken to pull off that impossible feat?
Well, let's go back to the Dutch study for a moment.
Okay.
Remember, their simulations showed that survival was possible.
Right.
But only under very specific conditions. They had to launch their raft at the right time. Paddle in the right direction.
Yeah.
And they would have needed a bit of luck on their side when it came to the currents and tides.
So it's not just about making a raft and hoping for the best.
No.
They had to have a deep understanding of the bay, the water, the elements.
Exactly. Think about it. These guys were career criminals.
Right.
But they were also incredibly resourceful.
Yeah.
Adaptable.
Yeah.
They weren't just relying on brute strength. They were using their minds.
Right.
Their knowledge of the environment.
And that brings us back to their time on Alcatraz.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to study the tides,
Right.
to gather the materials they needed to craft those intricate escape tools, It speaks to a level of planning and determination that's almost hard to fathom.
There are theories that they might have had outside help.
Really?
Perhaps someone was waiting for them in a boat, ready to whisk them away once they reached shore. It's speculation, of course, but it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility.
It would explain how they were able to disappear so quickly and effectively.
Right.
If someone was coordinating with them, providing them with resources,
Right.
a safe haven, it would make the whole vanishing act a lot more plausible.
But even without outside help, their meticulous planning might have given them a crucial edge.
Right.
They weren't just improvising, they had contingencies,
Yeah.
backup plans.
Yeah.
They were prepared for the challenges that awaited them.
It's almost like they were playing chess, thinking several moves ahead, anticipating the obstacles they'd face.
And that's what makes this case so captivating. We're not just talking about a prison break.
Right.
We're talking about a battle of wits, a clash between the seemingly impenetrable walls of Alcatraz and the unyielding will of these three men.
So what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from this story, even if the definitive answer remains elusive?
I think it's a story about the power of human ingenuity.
Yeah.
The resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah.
These were men facing seemingly insurmountable odds.
Right.
And yet they refused to give up. They used their minds, their skills, their creativity to challenge a system that believed it had them completely contained.
It's also a story that reminds us that sometimes the most compelling truths are the ones that resist easy answers.
Yeah.
We may never know for certain what happened to Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers,
Right.
but their story continues to inspire us to question, to explore, and to never underestimate the power of human determination.
And maybe that's the most fitting ending to this tale.
Yeah.
A lingering question mark, an open invitation to consider the possibilities, to embrace the mystery.
If you, dear listener, are as captivated by this story as we are, we encourage you to explore the wealth of information available online.
Definitely.
The FBI's official records the accounts of those who were there, the theories and speculations.
Yeah, it's all out there.
It's all out there waiting to be discovered. Maybe you'll be the one to uncover the missing piece of this puzzle, the clue that unlocks the truth behind the Alcatraz escape.
Yeah.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of curiosity alive.